At 2 a.m. Eastern, the order came down. Valves along the Enbridge main line to the U.S. slammed shut, cutting off nearly 500,000 barrels a day bound for Trump's Gulf refineries. In Sarnia, tank levels stopped rising. On the Gulf Coast, traders woke to crude prices dipping before sunrise. And in Alberta's dispatch room, a new map glowed. One that ended not in Houston or Chicago but at a deep-water port on James Bay, with tankers charted for Europe. Canada hadn't just slowed the flow, overnight it had redrawn the oil map. This wasn't a sudden rupture, more like a prelude. Ontario, Alberta and Saskatchewan had quietly agreed to study a new energy corridor running from Alberta's oil sands straight to Ontario's refining hub. For decades, Canada's energy exports leaned almost entirely southbound. This plan rewrites that story, ending not in the U.S. Midwest or Gulf Coast, but at ports on James Bay, Hudson Bay, and the Great Lakes, opening direct gateways to Atlantic markets. For Washington, it's a warning shot. Canada's largest crude supplier is exploring how to turn away. Historically, Canada's oil map has tilted south, a singular flow defining the North American energy relationship. In 2024, it exported over 4 million barrels per day, nearly all of it to the U.S. This wasn't just a partnership, it was a deep-seated dependency. The United States was effectively the only major customer, a reality that shaped Canada's energy strategy and left it vulnerable to the pressures of a single buyer. This created a costly paradox. Ontario, too far from Western supply to feed its own refineries directly, imported close to 500,000 barrels a day, most of it from the U.S. That meant Canadian crude often crossed the border, got refined or redistributed under U.S. terms, and then came back north at a premium. It was an inefficient loop, a vulnerability dictated by a lack of east-west infrastructure. This corridor flips that equation. For the first time, it creates a direct, secure artery for Western Canadian oil to move east entirely within Canada's borders. This is about national energy security, feeding Ontario directly, dodging U.S. bottlenecks, and insulating the supply chain from cross-border friction. Crucially, it also unlocks new maritime routes to lucrative European and Asian markets. On paper, it's a defensive move. In practice, it's sharper, because it threatens a long-standing U.S. advantage. American refiners have built their profits on the discounted price of Canadian heavy crude. This gap, a direct result of Canada's limited global access, made its oil a captive, cheaper resource, creating a built-in profit margin for U.S. industry. Give Canada an eastbound outlet to Tidewater and that discount narrows. Suddenly those same barrels compete at global prices. With access to the world market, Canadian oil is no longer a captive resource. For U.S. refiners, it means paying more. For Canada, it means higher revenues and a fundamental rebalancing of power, a change baked into geography itself. Ontario's Sarnia complex, home to Imperial's 120,000 BPD refinery and Suncor's 85,000 BPD plant, sits right next to Great Lakes shipping lanes. If Western crude reaches Sarnia without detouring through U.S. lines, surplus volumes could head east to Tidewater using the same product pipelines. In one move, Canada cuts transport costs, secures supply for its industrial core, and gains a path to overseas buyers. The public pitch is about protection. Ontario's Infrastructure Minister Kinga Surma warns of unprecedented U.S. tariffs and global instability. Premier Doug Ford says outright, total U.S. reliance is over. But the design says more. This isn't just insulation, it's the creation of options, selling to whoever pays best. That's the U.S. dilemma. In 2024, Canadian crude supplied 60% of U.S. imports and nearly a quarter of its total refinery throughput, much of it heavy crude tailor-made for U.S. refineries. Divert even a fraction east, and U.S. buyers will have to shop in Latin America or the Middle East, at Brent-linked prices. Margins shrink, and the quiet advantage fades. The proposed development plan is far more than a pipeline, it's a comprehensive vision for Canada's economic future. The study outlines a multifaceted infrastructure network, including port upgrades, new refineries, and all-season roads, and broadband for remote northern regions. This fosters development far beyond the energy sector. A key strategic link would connect this corridor to Ontario's Ring of Fire, a region laden with critical minerals for electric vehicles. This creates a powerful symbiotic two-way artery. Western energy flows east, while vital minerals for the green economy flow out to global markets. For Ottawa, this represents a rare moment of provincial unity, transcending historical friction over resources. The economic calculus is compelling for each partner. Alberta could achieve higher global prices for its oil. Ontario's industrial heartland secures a stable domestic source of feedstock. Saskatchewan and Manitoba gain vital new export routes for oil, potash, and agricultural products. Together, these steps move Canada from a price taker beholden to U.S. markets to a price maker on the world stage. Beyond the economic upside is the critical issue of energy security. Ontario's Chemical Valley is heavily reliant on the U.S.-linked Line 5 pipeline, which moves 540,000 barrels per day. That line faces persistent legal and political challenges in Michigan. A shutdown for any reason would trigger an immediate and severe supply crisis in central Canada. A purely domestic energy corridor neutralizes this geopolitical vulnerability, providing a robust, long-term solution to ensure Canada's energy independence. Framed as a shield, the corridor is also a sword, redirecting flows and shifting leverage. As a shield, it insulates Canada from the political pressures of a single customer. As a sword, it allows Canadian resources to compete directly on the world stage, granting Ottawa a new level of influence in global energy politics. The U.S. would still buy millions of barrels, but now by choice, not default. For decades, the U.S. has been the only viable market. This corridor introduces genuine competition, forcing U.S. refineries to bid for barrels that could otherwise sail to Europe or Asia. This isn't just a pipeline story, it's a redrawing of North America's energy map, where geography itself becomes negotiable. The most striking feature isn't the steel in the ground, but the ports on the horizon. James Bay and Hudson Bay freeze part of the year, but ice-class ships and modern port design could keep them open longer, turning a historic barrier into a strategic gateway. From there, Canada could reach Europe without Panama Canal choke points. This eastern egress provides a secure route to European refineries seeking stable, non-OPEC supply. Great Lakes ports could connect to the Atlantic via the St. Lawrence Seaway, bypassing U.S. customs entirely, a declaration of commercial sovereignty. That would be a shift unseen since the first westbound rail lines, pricing Canadian crude closer to global benchmarks and cutting the WTI discount. Closing that price gap could inject billions annually into the Canadian economy, funding a new era of development and innovation. Ironically, U.S. policy once encouraged Canada to expand export capacity, assuming the flows would still head south. Now, Canada's using that encouragement to create competition. The public language is resilience, but the signal to Washington is blunt. Canadian oil will go where the deal is best. The build-out would be massive. New pipelines, ice-class tanker ports, possibly a refinery, plus indigenous consultation and financing plans to de-risk investment. While officially just a study, the political tone suggests momentum. Ontario says the 100% U.S. reliance era is over. Alberta sees higher returns. Saskatchewan calls east-west links long overdue. Together, that turns the corridor from contingency into objective. The U.S. still has buying power, but it's now conditional. A Canada that can move oil east at will is a Canada that negotiates with options. The corridor might never replace U.S. volumes, but it doesn't need to. Its existence changes the conversation. This isn't only about moving oil, it's about ending single market dependence. The U.S. will remain Canada's biggest customer, but no longer its only one. In the quiet hiss of those idle pipelines is a message. The flow of oil is now strategic, not automatic. You're watching GeoScope, your lens on the shifting maps of trade, energy, and geopolitics. Like, share, and subscribe to keep exploring the world's turning points.